Hey everyone, Pete Williams here, and in this video I want to share with you the first steps to massive personal wealth. And there's three things I'm going to share with you. Firstly, I want to talk about why I choose to rent rather than own my home. I want to show you the best debt reduction system that has been shared with me so you can get the ball rolling for yourself. I also want to mention some additional video resources that have just been released online that you should really check out and watch as well. They teach you a lot about money and investing and how to grow your personal wealth. Now, would it surprise you to learn that I choose to rent the home that Fleur and I live in, even though the weekly rental payments are higher than what the loan repayments would be? I still choose to rent, and let me show you why. Now, like most things in life, most people put the cart before the horse. This is just as true in marketing, sales, weight loss as it is with investing. They buy the house, deck it out with everything to impress the neighbours, to the point that they can't afford to allocate any additional money towards investments. And once they have children, it becomes even more difficult to save. And realistically, the only way to stay afloat is to work harder and harder and harder for the man. And this, my friends, is what we call the rat race, and something we're all trying to avoid. Now, it's important to really focus on acquiring investments and assets, and then reinvesting the earnings from those assets so that you can actually increase your net wealth. Much more important than owning your own home. Because once you have many investments and assets providing you with multiple streams of income, then you can probably afford to pay cash for your home anyway. Now, these assets, these income and investment streams, can be everything from mutual funds to stocks and bonds, to businesses online and offline, to websites that generate an income from you by selling ebooks and things like that. Anything that actually gives you a multiple stream of income. So let's do the numbers on this, and I'll show you why renting is in most cases better than owning your own home. I guarantee this will amaze you. It will change some things you've believed about money. But don't worry, with the math here, we're going to go very slow. So we've got two options. The first option is to rent an apartment for $280 a week. The second option is to buy an apartment for $180,000. Now, if we chose to buy the $180,000 apartment, we'll need a 20% deposit of $36,000, and then our weekly repayments will be $245.38 per week for the next 30 years. And this is assuming we get a fixed interest rate of 8%. Now, what you'll see from there is that the weekly cash flow position I'm in is actually out $34.62, or a total of $1,824. This is the difference between the rental money that I'm paying or the house repayments. So I'm actually out just under $2,000 a year cash flow from my wallet by choosing to rent. Now, with these numbers, just as a quick side note, they may be accurate from where you are around the world, they may be completely different. It doesn't matter, the math is the same. You can always add or subtract some zeros here and play around with it a little bit, but just follow the math through because it will amaze you. So, let's say I rented this apartment rather than actually buying the house. And what I do, instead of actually taking that $36,000 that is a deposit or a down payment, I'm going to actually choose to invest that $36,000 at an average investment or rate of return of 15% per annum. There's a range of ways you can do this, whether it might be through businesses or mutual funds or stocks and bonds, but let's just assume we can get an average 15% per annum return on that $36,000. That return in cold hard cash to me will be $5,400 per year. So if we do the numbers, if we go $5,400 less the $1,824 we have to or have effectively lost from deciding to rent, that leaves me with a bank balance of $3,599.76 better off every single year. So I take that $36,000, I invest it in some sort of vehicle that gives me a 15% return. I take out that additional lost cash flow that I have to actually fork out above owning a house to pay off that rent. I'm still $3,600 a year financially better off on a yearly cash flow basis. Can you see how that can be a better way to actually afford your lifestyle or to start building some massive wealth? Because it gets better. Let's roll this out over the 30-year period. This is the 30 years you would have otherwise been locked into the mortgage. If I continually reinvest that $3,599.76 over that 30 years at 15% interest, so I'm using compound interest. I'm compounding this investment yearly. Every year that money just goes straight back into the investment. I've taken out that $1,800 I had to use to pay the additional rent, but that $3,600 can go back into an investment. Over 30 years, that will provide me with a portfolio of $7,969,515.97. Just under $8 million. Now, what if I was an exceptional investor and I was able to achieve an average of 20% a year on my returns? That investment over 30 years would end up being $29,927,699.19. That's a lot of money. That's cash that I can now use to fund a lifestyle, a boat, maybe even a plane. Now, if we can compare that with what would happen if we actually owned the home from day one. Now, let's say that the apartment's value has actually gone up by, let's say, tenfold. That apartment that we bought 30 years ago for $180,000 is now worth $1.8 million, which is a pretty good rental or capital growth of a apartment. $180,000 to $1.8 million in 10 years. That's pretty good. But that's still just over $6 million less than what would have happened if I chose to rent and invest that extra cash flow annually at 15%. Significant difference here in my bank balance, or my net wealth, if you will. $1.8 million of a fixed asset house if I chose to own, or I chose to rent. Even after paying rent at 15% interest, I'm worth just under $8 million. And here's this for a kicker. Do you know how much interest I would have paid on the apartment loan over 30 years? $202,000, or just over $202,000, which equates to 37.5 years rent. So just the interest I would have paid on my home is actually more than I would have paid in rent over that period of time. So I'm not sure about you, but that is the reason I choose to rent rather than own my home. I'd rather take that additional income and invest it in assets that can give me a much, much greater cash on cash return over that 30-year period than a house or apartment ever will. Now, before you go out and invest in assets that can provide you a 15% return and build that $8 million portfolio, you have to actually reduce your debts. And if you're like most people, you're going to have consumer debts that need to be eliminated. And that debt is typically being hit with interest rates that are larger than 15%. Think of your store cards or your credit cards. And again, like most people, you've probably started this year off, giving yourself a New Year's resolution to get out of debt. Well, this system is by far the best system that's ever been shared with me to reducing that debt very quickly and allowing you to actually build up a cash flow or a cash asset or a bank balance of $36,000 that you can then choose to invest as a down payment on a home or into some sort of investment asset that's going to give you that snowball effect to build the $8 million wealth that we spoke about in the previous section. And when it comes to snowballs, that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to use the snowball debt reduction method. It's very, very simple, but it's highly effective because it uses the same force that makes a snowball turn into an avalanche. Just like in building that $8 million wealth, we actually started with small payments every month into this little asset that over time it compounded into $8 million. We're going to use that in a reverse to actually eliminate our debt. We're going to start with small steps and small repayments and then let that grow with momentum into an avalanche of debt reduction. Now, the snowball method simply involves paying the minimum monthly balance on all your debts except for one, which you consistently pay a set amount over time above the minimum repayment amount. And once this first debt is paid off, you apply your repayment amount to the next debt, and so on and so forth. Now, there's several ways to actually approach this snowball method, but paying the debt with the highest interest rate first makes the most mathematical sense. And that's the process I'm going to walk you through. Because being the son of a maths teacher, I like to follow maths. It's just how I work. Because paying off debts in the order of interest rate is going to save you the most amount of time and the most amount of money, which is what it's all about. So the first step in this snowball debt reduction method is to create a spreadsheet with 4 columns. And those 4 columns are debt name, current balance, interest rate, and minimum monthly repayment. Once you have that spreadsheet set up, we move on to step 2, which is to list all your debts in that spreadsheet, starting with the debt that has the highest interest rate first. So we're going to list them in order of highest interest rate. Fill out all those columns, give the debt a name. Maybe it might be Visa card or store card 1 or car repayment. Any sort of debt you might have, any consumer level debt, and that includes your home, your car, your store credit cards, all that sort of stuff. List them here in this spreadsheet, because then we're going to move on to step 3. And step 3 is to actually work out what your accelerator payment is. Now, the accelerator payment is the dollar amount over and above the total minimum monthly payment you must make. So what are you going to add to your debt reduction beyond the minimum payments you have to make? That's your obligation. What else can you actually put in to accelerate this and get the snowball happening? When this method was first shared to me, I was told to use 10% of my net weekly income as the accelerator, because you won't miss 10% of your income after about 3 weeks. Once you get into the habit of this and the routine, 10% won't be missed. Another option is to work out how much you currently pay on your debt reduction every month, subtract the minimum totals, and that difference is your accelerator. Because for a lot of people, you'll actually be currently paying above and beyond your minimum monthly payments, but you won't be applying it in the best way possible, which is what this system's all about. So you can either get 10% of your net income and make that your accelerator, or work out how much above and beyond your minimum payments you're currently spending on debt reduction and use that as your accelerator payment, which is going to be applied strategically to your debt. Now, step 4, we start making payments to reduce this debt. Every month, you only make the minimum monthly payment on every debt, except for the debt with the highest interest rate, the one at the top of the spreadsheet. On this debt, we're going to make the minimum monthly payment, plus we're going to apply that full accelerator payment to this one debt. We're not going to spread it out like you've probably been doing. We're going to apply that accelerator to the debt with the highest interest rate. And then we simply rinse and repeat the process. You do this every single month until that first debt is completely paid off. That accelerator will help you get the ball rolling. And once that debt with the highest interest rate is paid off, you apply the entire amount you're paying on that first debt to the debt with the next highest amount, the second debt in that spreadsheet. So that way you're making a significant payment each and every month to this second debt, but your lifestyle has not been affected at all. You're still paying the same monthly debt reduction payment. It's just being applied differently. You're applying that total amount differently. The minimum payment for that second debt plus the entire amount you were paying on that first debt. And then once that second debt is paid off, you do that to the third debt, the debt with the third highest interest rate. You take the minimum monthly payment on that plus any amount you were paying on the previous debt, and you continually rinse and repeat this payment. Because as these repayments compound, the debt reduction accelerates, saving you time and money and building up that snowball. It is very, very effective. Just one small change in the way you're applying your accelerator payment, the amount you're paying over your monthly minimums every month, will snowball and fast track your debt reduction and save you a lot of interest. Because remember, Any form of debt elimination is wealth building, because every dollar you pay off against what you owe means you own one more dollar of your own possessions, and that builds your net worth by $1. So debt elimination is one of the first steps to massive personal wealth. By reducing the debt you owe, it's going to increase your personal wealth. And then at the end of this snowball reduction period, you can then take that amount that you were paying every single month to reduce your debt and throw it into an investment like the ones we spoke about earlier, which will over a 30-year period turn into $8 million. Because if you're interested in the psychology of failure and success with money, then I really encourage you to check out some videos that Eben Pagan has just released. The videos cover things like why it is that money confuses us on a psychological level, and how this leads to most of us winding up broke and dependent on others by retirement age. How a simple monthly car payment can cost you millions of dollars. That's very serious, guys. You want to check that out. Also, why buying or selling things while you're under the influence of emotion always costs you a lot in the long run. Plus, a money mistake that most people make when figuring out how much a purchase will actually cost them. And almost everyone makes this expensive mistake, and Eben shows you how to avoid it. There's a bunch of other PDF reports and videos and things like that, and if you've been familiar with Eben Pagan and the stuff he talks about online, you'll know that he has moved the free line, and the value that he actually gives in these free giveaway videos are amazing. So I really encourage you to actually check out some of these videos about money that Eben is releasing right now too. It'll take what you learned in this video from me and exponentially grow it. Exponentially grow your bank balance and your knowledge around money. There's a link right below this video taking you to those videos from Eben straight away. So I really encourage you to click on that link and grow your personal wealth. The videos are amazing, the quality of the videos are amazing, and the things you learn are stuff you can apply straight away. So again, click that link, check out Eben's videos, and consider his self-made wealth program. I highly recommend it.